It's always lovely to be in this room, but especially this morning, music is knocking it out of the ballpark. Oh my gosh. It's really beautiful. Why on earth would Unitarian Universalists celebrate Easter? Seriously. After all, our friends and members here are devoted to a multitude of personal belief understandings of the sacred even. Some are Christian, some are practicing Jews, many others are not of either flavor of UU. Maybe it would be a good time to pause and touch base about a little bit about our Unitarian Universalist heritage. For example, a great turning point was in 1828 when Unitarian minister William Ellery Channing delivered a sermon titled, quote, "Likeness to God," unquote. He articulated a theology. This is almost 100 years ago, remember. He articulated a theology that embraced human possibility as a sacred calling, against Calvinist doctrines of human depravity and dependence on divine grace for salvation. Channing preached that humans bear the image of God not as a distant memory or prelapsarian perfection, but as present capacity and future potential. So the prominent form of Calvinism at the time involved total depravity. That is, every aspect of human nature is corrupted by sin. There was unconditional election, or the idea that before the creation of the world, God chose or elected certain individuals for salvation based solely on God's will. This was a prominent consideration. In our society, there existed limited atonement, whereby Christ's death on the cross was intended to secure the redemption specifically for those elected, rather than making salvation possible for everyone in the form of universalism, meaning we believe no one will suffer or go to hell upon death. Heck, many of us don't even believe there is a hell except here on earth. This is the emerging universalism that existed and still is present today. So Reverend Channing had the audacity to argue that the purpose of religion was not to appease an angry deity or God, but to cultivate divine qualities already inherent but latent in human nature. That is, he implied it is our task as people of faith to nurture within ourselves and one another qualities such as reason and conscience, love, creativity, moral sense, and growth toward an ever greater likeness to God. Channing's words reveal that humans are not fixed in sin, but capable of ongoing spiritual and moral development. That self-improvement and social reform, that's the religious work, and that the future can be better than the past, precisely because human nature is not extinguished, but still unfolding. So this morning, we are not saying, quote, Jesus died on the cross for our sins. Not at all. That's not who we are. And yet, there is good reason to remember, A, the trauma of a devoted group of people who watched. Imagine being somebody who said, I believe that what this man teaches is true, that God is love, is not a vengeful kind of God. Can you imagine how these people felt when they watched B, a good man, a powerful Jew, a leader, a teacher who taught about love in the face of an oppressive Roman regime, how he suffered and paid for his convictions with his very life. So you and I might disagree on a number of personal ideas, such as the existence of a divine entity or not, which is the beauty of our living tradition, by the way. We might disagree on many things. One thing that I never hear a UU say, not one Unitarian Universalist who does not believe that fighting against injustice is part of our calling as Unitarian Universalists. This is a foundational element of who we are. We fight for injustice. Against injustice. We fight for justice. We are a people of deeds and doing, not creeds, as they say. So even though the Easter story involves a, quote, he arose celebration of joy, it mustn't be considered too lightly. It has the capacity to prompt more reflection about how one rises from both personal and societal challenges. My colleague, Reverend Scott Taylor, writes, we dishonor the Easter story by making it smaller than it is. This is no, quote, the sun will come up tomorrow story. This is no carpe diem called to suck more joy out of the day. This is no, but look, the glass is half full kind of hope. Quite the contrary. This is a story, he says, about what is possible when the glass has been totally shattered. When our lives have been ripped to shreds, when we've been thrown into a living hell. And it is the story that says, even then, you can come back out if you believe. Right there is the rub, isn't it? The part we so often miss, the part that says it all depends on how big we can believe. Don't you see, he says, this isn't just a story out to offer us hope. It's a story that doesn't let us off the hook. There's a stern warning here, a compassionate but clear condemnation about the way we tragically allow others to shrink our imaginations. Its message isn't just about God being triumphant. It's about how our dinky little stories are what keeps us mired in death. It's a story that says your belief needs to be braver and bigger. It's a story that almost desperately pleads, please try, for your sake, yes, but others' sake too. Believe that racism will one day no longer exist. Because, and the other oppressions will no longer one day exist. We can imagine. It's big. It feels overwhelming. If you can call up the courage to imagine that unimaginable possibilities are on the way, even the most soul-crushing stones, he said, can be rolled aside. So one, we UU celebrate Easter because it is in our UU DNA to remember our ancestors' opinion that free will and moral character are most meaningful for an authentic life of faith. Two, we pause to recall why we are such a justice-minded people even today. Centered in love, we hold most dear these values: justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity. These are key fundamental elements of who we are. And three, maybe you are like me. Do you love symbolism in stories as much as the fact of any given story? I do. I love the symbolism. I'm not going to argue with what is true and what isn't. It's the symbolism in the story. In the original Easter story, darkness is a prominent feature. Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, who told his friends to stay and wait for him to come back. Of course, they all fell asleep. They're human. They were. The man is soon crucified and the sky goes dark. His dead body in a dark cave where the women arrive to find his body gone in the light of day. Darkness is not evil in this case, but a moment to stop what you're doing and reflect. It's a time for waiting, for wondering. for the eventual gift of overcoming pain for revelation. By the way, I'm very careful. I'm going off script here for those of you who are watching, but I'm very careful to say, yes, Jesus rose. Because 3 years ago, my stepfather died, and she was probably 5-year-old niece came into the funeral home and saw her grandfather's body and said, "Why doesn't he rise? I learned in Sunday school that Jesus rose last week, so why can't he come back to life?" I got to tell you, I'm not having those conversations, right? So we have to be careful to remember the symbolism in the story. Wendell Berry wrote, "To go in the dark with a light is to know light. To know the dark, go dark. Go without sight. And to find that the dark too blooms and sings and is traveled by dark feet and dark wings." Bill Plotkin wrote, "In befriending the dark, offer your careful attention to everything you hear and feel and smell there, knowing much of what you experience will be just your imagination projecting unassimilated elements of your own psyche. You will learn much from what you project. But what you encounter in the dark will also include flesh and blood entities of the night, owls and bats and deer and raccoons and spiders and mice that may be curious about you, even drawn to you. People of some nature-based cultures say if you regularly encounter raccoons, for example, on the one hand, you might have raccoon medicine. On the other hand, they say you may just have been sitting in the path of the raccoon who travels in the middle of the night. So, in my 18 years as a UU minister, I cannot count the times when people have said to me, "I don't believe a word that Jesus rose to the sky. Come on, say you don't believe it too." My response is always, "Isn't it a wonderful story? Even when a cherished teacher dies, the lessons about love live on. I'm happy to let the story remain a mystery. I hope that when I'm gone, people remember some of the words that I've said. Don't you hope that when you are gone, some of the stories of those who remain, who've spent time with you, will remember you?" That's a powerful story. I'm not arguing about the fact of any of it. Yes, I'll be curious and do some research and wonder what this was all about. I also have had too many stories about mysterious things happening that have no explanation. I mean, I'm also crazy about surprise endings, aren't you? Maybe it means that life is filled with surprises around every corner, that hope can emerge even in times of great sadness, that there is always a flutter of possibility that goodness can overpower hate. Do we have to withhold jubilation by persistently questioning the facts and forgetting the limitless power of metaphor in storytelling? Really now, do we humans have to know everything? Right? Mary Oliver wrote, "Don't hesitate." This is her poem. "If you suddenly and unexpectedly feel joy, don't hesitate, give in to it. There are plenty of lives and whole towns destroyed or about to be. We are not wise and not very often kind, and much can never be redeemed. Still, life has some possibility left. Perhaps this is its way of fighting back, that sometimes something happens better than all the riches or power in the world. It could be anything, but very likely you'll notice it in the instant when love begins. Anyway, that's often the case," said Oliver. "Anyway, whatever it is, don't be afraid of its plenty. Joy is not made to be a crumb. Joy is not made to be a crumb." So I will end this message with a short story. True story. The large white van was loaded with tubes of oil paint, brushes, stretched canvas, thick paper, and soft French pastels. My finicky artist friend and I had been traveling for 3 hours in the Midwestern country, backcountry, in search of the perfect place to camp. However, it had to be more than just the perfect place to pitch a tent. It had to be a place where my friend was confident that for an hour or two the next day, the trees would cast the most dynamic purple shadows ever, and the meadow would glow in shades of amber and gold. To quote my friend, "It has to be a place most conducive to the creation of the best landscape painting ever and for all time." My artist friend was extremely dramatic. We found a most ideal location in the middle of nowhere. We went to a farmer's house who lived nearby and asked if we could camp in his field. After receiving permission, we prepared to rest for the night. Let me tell you, it was pitch dark that evening. No street light was present, no cell phone signals anywhere. As I lay in the dark, I was sure skinny, gray Indiana wolves were surrounding our tent. Alas, after having slept not a wink, we got up. It was still dark when we got up. We cleared a little area of dirt and built a small little fire. We heated water to make matcha, a curious brew of organic green tea that tastes like grass. Very appropriate for where we were. For those of you who love matcha, I mean no judgment, I'm just saying. Then we sat in folding chairs to watch the sun come up. We hoped for a lovely view, but what we got was an ethereal experience. About an hour after the sun lifted above the horizon line and before we got up from our folding chairs to gather and repack our belongings, there emerged a soft but very discernible rustling sound. With not one whisper of a breeze present, we watched as a large area of wheat shifted and swayed. Only a few feet from where we sat, I thought it must be enormous, this animal that's in there. Just as the rustling reached a crescendo and the sun attained her morning perch above a thick ribbon of baby blue sky, there arose a massive display of bright yellow butterflies. Massive. There were too many to count. The flutter of those lemon-colored beauties climbed high into the blue abyss of sky above. It was the most wonderful sight, a visual form of a Bach sonata, the notes dancing in a delightful, never-to-be-forgotten visual composition. Could you see this in your mind when I was describing this? I hope so. The memory of the surprise continues to bring a smile to my face. All these years later, I wonder, do you recall an incomprehensible and unexpected surprise of beauty? Our only goal that morning was to watch the sunrise. We received so much more. Sometimes one is rewarded for doing nothing. Thank you for sharing a moment to recall a man this morning who fought to his death against a society filled with injustice. May our time together today provide you with more energy to continue to build the world we are all dreaming about, and a flutter of possibility that hope will rise even when times feel devoid of sanity, love, and compassion. Amen, and blessed be.